The orcs exited the cave one after the other, and grimaced in sheer discomfort at the presence of the midday sun. To a man, their species despised sunlight. Even the slightest exposure to it could be unbearable. But they were also confused. In their world, there was nothing but storms and darkness, and unrelenting winds which dragged sand and debris everywhere. Many of them had never known a sky filled with such unrelenting brightness. The presence of it was unnerving to them. But they were warriors by profession and preference, and monstrous though they were, their discipline and self-control was like steel. None of them voiced a complaint. None but their infamous captain.
"What is this place? It is wrong! It is wrong!"
shouted Azrak the Hated, as the riders emerged from the cavern into this mysterious new land.
"The sun! So vibrant and bright, I despise it! Look at the green abundance of these verdant plains. I wish to burn them. This land offends the very core of my being. Turn back. Turn back, you feckless slimes. We should not dally in this light. We'll wait until nightfall."
"The chieftain commands that we explore this realm quickly, raid leader," said Ontish the Miser, a short stooped orc whose beard trailed to his fallen knees.
"His exact commands was not to rest until we discovered everything about our new surroundings. If we are to conquer this land, then Grimscorn requires knowledge. You know well the price of his displeasure." "Shut up, you wizened old shit," spat Azrak. "I do not fear Grimscorn. I was raiding, rampaging and ravaging long before the tusk of that arrogant well finished growing in. If that boy disagrees with my methods, then let him play cartographer himself. My men shall not endure the sun just so you can court his favour."
Ontish fumed at the raid captain's disrespectful words. He was so angered by them that he began hopping up and down in indignant fury.
"Azrak, you defiant scum! The chieftain will know of your bold words. Oh yes, he will, he will. Then we'll all see just how brave you truly are when he calls you to account." Ugh! "My words are always chosen carefully, old man,"
Azrak said mildly, as he cleaned the jeweled dagger he disemboweled Ontish with, by using the old fool's beard as a rag.
"Especially my insults. No one calls a true raiding captain scum in front of his own men, especially when their benefactor isn't there in person to protect them. How did you live to such an old age without ever realizing that?" Fool! This treachery will not go unpunished," rasped Ontish. "I will be avenged. You will die such an unsightly death, you twice-fat bastard. I swear you will."
"Someone toss this idiot and his leaking guts out into the sun," Azrak commanded of his men. "I want to place bets over how long it will take for him to die. I have a flat silver that says the run won't last 2 hours."
"I'll take that bet,"
one of his boys called out.
3 hours. It'll last 3 hours. Take my coin," shouted another.
Azrak laughed at their enthusiasm, and settled on a stone to watch the show. Well, Pete and I eventually patched things up. What can I say? Friends argue, especially good ones, but because they're friends, they don't let their disagreement take up too much space for too long. After 3 days of mutually cold professionalism as we worked, we slowly began warming up to each other again. It took a couple more weeks for things to finish thawing out, but by then we'd finished with the armor, and were working on the spy satellites. Now let me just say this. It's hard to stay mad at anyone who's helping you to shoot rockets into space. Putting objects into orbit was a pretty big step, right? You're not wrong. But the thing is, as useful as our aerial drones were for reconnaissance and fire support, their distance was too limited. 10 square miles might seem like a lot, but that won't tell you squat about the entire continent. I didn't just need to know when my enemies were within 10 miles of me, I needed to know where they were at all times. For that, I needed more eyes in the sky, and bigger eyes too, and they don't get much bigger than a spy satellite. Constructing the satellites and the rockets was a much easier task than building the power armor had been. It only took a couple of hours to get everything ready for assembly, and once we were set, we were outside, grilling some fresh steaks carved from the game I'd hunted, while enjoying some beer I'd managed to brew from the wild grain growing throughout the area. Frankly speaking, the booze tasted more than a little like wet dirt, but it still had a nice kick to it. I'd just been in too much of a hurry for some strong drink and hadn't let it ferment long enough. I let the next batch age longer, and see if I couldn't get a cleaner taste from it. Eating and drinking in my yard while firing off some big honking rockets into the wild blue yonder felt pretty dang good. I had on a pair of cut-offs, my boots, and a Panama hat, and nothing else. Since Pete had downloaded basically all of Earth's recorded music in its entirety, we even had some Skinner playing in the background while watching the rockets fly away. Everything was too perfect. Yee-haw! I whooped joyfully, as another one took off. Would you like a fresh beverage, sir? Why, I believe I would, Pete, I said, as I kicked back in my lawn chair. And hey, why don't we whip out some regular fireworks too while we're at it? I am ready for this show to end. It shall be done, Sir Matthew, Pete said cheerfully. Fireworks, steak and beer. Yep, this was the good life. What is that noise? What are those odd giant spears piercing the sky? What could possibly be causing all of those strange colours? Azrek asked himself. Irritated by his own ignorance, he kicked Oddstisha's lifeless corpse savagely in the head. Oddstisha had been aggravating and spineless, but he possessed considerable knowledge garnered through age and experience. Perhaps he would have been able to advise Azrek as to what was going on. But the weak-old bastard hadn't even lasted an hour before dying, just as the mysterious explosions began. So useless, so useless, so useless, fumed Azrek inwardly. What shall we do, leader? Asked one of his men nervously. It seems there may be magic at play here. No doubt these are the acts of a damn wizard of some kind. A wizard, you say? Azrek said softly to himself. Could that be true? Azrek had killed many so-called wizards in his time. There were many who claimed mastery of the mystical arts, but most of them were liars, who were desperate to appear powerful and wise. They were nothing but shameless frauds seeking attention and wealth. Utterly pathetic, the entire lot of them. But every now and then a true master of sorcery would appear. Dangerous, powerful, and most importantly, wealthy. True wizards attracted riches like beetles collecting dung. Tracking whoever this noisy fool was to his lair and seizing his treasures would be a simple feat. Wizards were powerful, but they still had their mortal limits. With his 100 riders behind him, the orc was certain he could negotiate excellent terms for himself. Azrek grinned in avaricious anticipation. As soon as the sun began to ebb, he and his raiders would move out. I dozed off a little bit later, just snoozing in my chair for a bit, when Pete began trying to wake me up. Sir Matthew! Sir! Sir Matthew? Goodness, you're such a heavy sleeper. Wake up, please. Oh, very well. Aero Unit number 214. I request that you fetch a pail of water and deposit its contents on Sir Matthew's head. Whoa, whoa, I said, lurching to my feet at his words. I'm up. No need for that. I looked around the courtyard of the keep, seeing that night had fallen, and the automatic exterior lights had kicked on. What's so important you couldn't let me finish napping? Our monitor drones have detected a large gathering of armed beings outside the walls of the keep, Sir Matthew. They appear to be preparing to initiate hostilities. Lord, what? I said to myself, feeling deeply amused by his words. How are they going to get over the walls? You made those things slicker than a New York City lawyer. Several attempts have already been made, Pete said. How did they turn out? I asked him. Poorly. Good man, I said approvingly, as I began stretching my legs and arms, gave myself a few hip rotations, and then suddenly pulled at the sides of my neck until I felt a satisfying pop on each end of them. Practical experience had taught me years ago that a fellow should always take the time to get warmed up, if he's about to go slap somebody upside the head for being a damn fool. So, what are we dealing with tonight? More elves up to their usual nonsense? I inquired. No, sir. It would appear that these creatures are Hesketh, Pete informed me, before generating a large monitor on the ground that showed us a big group of large, heavily armed figures in the dark. These guys looked like desert bandits or something of that ilk, but their frames were massive. The biggest of them had to be nearly 7 feet tall, but the smaller ones were still well over the average human height. The name Peter called them sounded pretty funny, though. They appear to be what now? I asked him. Did you get something caught in your throat part? No, Sir Matthew. That was the correct pronunciation of their name. The Hesketh are a variant race of orcs, but they aren't native to this world, nor to any parallel world in this section of the multiverse. How could they possibly be here? This is a very strange development. What? Are you saying these boys are alien invaders? I asked. Far from it, Pete said. Their current level of development, both technological and mystical, should prevent them from being able to create gateways or use matter transposement. They must have arrived here by other means, but the question remains, how? Hey, did you say these guys were orcs? I asked excitedly. Are they really? Indeed, they are. Why? No reason, I said with a smirk. Zug zug. Sir, Pete said with a sigh, need I remind you once more that the native species of different worlds are usually nothing like their exaggerated depictions in Terran popular media? What does that mean, by blood and thunder? I asked him innocently. It means that they will most likely behave in a manner counter to your expectations, Pete said earnestly. So you're saying we should be prepared for victory or death? Of course, but hopefully not always to that extreme, Pete continued obliviously. However, in accordance with what I was saying, the Hiskiv have a nomadic culture that practice a religion that exalts violent brigandry. I suspect this raiding band is here to steal whatever they can. What? I asked him in full shock. They want to steal our property? Yes, I'm afraid so, Pete said solemnly. So we'll need to defend our things? We may have to protect our loot? It may come to it. Then it seems we have no choice, Pete. We'll do it. Yes, sir. For the Horde! It was a joke, Pete, I said, after I finished laughing. I realize that now, he said stiffly. If you didn't see it coming, it's your own fault, I said, as I started cracking up again at his reaction. Very good, sir, he said. Yeah, I have my moments, I agreed smugly. Shall I send the drones to eliminate the orcs, or would you prefer I use the automatic turrets? Hey, what's the rush? Let's have some fun with them first. Put an intercom up outside the front wall. Let's see what these big boys have to say for themselves. First, then we'll... What the hell? I exclaimed, as an aerial drone came floating by, and entered a bucket of ice water on my head. Pete, what the hell was that, man? Didn't I tell you call off number 214? I asked him indignantly. Did you? My apologies, Sir Matthew. It must have slipped my memory, he said innocently. Since when does anything slip your memory? I said with a doubtful voice. It appears that I, too, have my moments, Pete said smugly. Ha ha ha, I muttered, as I took my hat off so I could shake my hair dry. Azrek was slowly beginning to grow angry. Just what were the damnable walls surrounding this keep made of? They were too thick to hammer into to create handholds. They were also practically frictionless. Even if they got a hook over the side of a wall, it couldn't keep its purchase. It would eventually slide back under a climber's weight, and send him crashing to the ground no matter how swiftly he tried ascending. The task was swiftly proving to be impossible. Azrek began eyeing his raiders, carefully considering which of them he would soon have to kill in order to quell his surging frustration. He'd have to do it soon. He'd always had issues dealing with disappointment. It had been a problem dating back to his childhood. His hair-trigger temper had left behind so many dead playmates. Well, at least they eventually learned to just let him win whatever game they were playing at the time. They usually worked out best for everyone, unless Azrek was in one of his dark moods, in which case, win or lose, someone would be swiftly sent to join their ancestors. He was in such a mood right now. When the last climber fell from the wall, Azrek pounced on him before he could get up, and began viciously stabbing his chosen victim in the face and neck until he stopped moving. Then, Azrek stomped on the corpse's head until it was mashed into a gory paste that clung beneath his boot. That soothed him for a bit. He felt better now. He really did. He shouldn't feel another urge to kill anyone else for the rest of the night. Unless he did. Hey, man, not cool, you hear me? A crackling voice said to him from out of nowhere. You better clean that shit up on your way out. Azrek stared at the strange metal protrusion connected to the foremost wall and tapped it curiously with his clawed finger. Where had it come from? What is this thing? Is someone communicating through this device? He asked. Yes, boy, I am, the voice replied indignantly. And just what the hell do you think you're doing, making a mess on someone else's property? Why are you on my land anyway? Didn't you see the sign? Says no solicitors. Azrek was impressed by this display of magic, even if its creator sounded like an utter fool. You saw me strike that useless idiot down? How? By what means did you observe us? You can't tell? The voice said mockingly. You're on candid camera, son.
Stop referring to me as though I were your kin. It infuriates me. Ashok hissed angrily.
Yeah, well, I'm in here and you're out there. So what you do or don't like can ship bricks as far as I'm concerned, replied the voice.
You would not speak so boldly to me if we were face to face, coward, Ashok growled.
Well, we're not face to face, but bless your angry little heart anyway, laughed the voice.
Well, get inside, wizard. We will. You can't hide in there forever, Ashok vowed.
Wizard? Ain't no wizards around these parts, sunshine. If you're looking for Hogwarts, I'm afraid that's northwest from here by train. This here's Defiance Keep.
You claim not to be a wizard? Your home reveals your lie, fool. What are you hiding in there anyway? Riches? Forbidden knowledge? Slaves? Let us inside. We are persistent and clever, and we will get in there eventually. Whether you survive that moment or not will depend on your compliance, Ashok said.
Oh, for God's sake, Pa, there's plenty of dark elf halls to the east of here. Go bother them instead of me. Maybe if you bring them some cookies, they'll feel neighborly towards you.
Ashok said. You sound like a human to me.
Only 'cause I am one, the voice retorted.
I see. Yes, I see, Ashok said with an unnerving smile. Well then, if there are dark elves holding the lands east of here, then the humans are undoubtedly huddled to the west. I much prefer humans as prey. They're softer targets. The women are warm and scream in interesting ways, and the children are such tender eating. Thank you for your considerate advice, Castellan. My raiders and I will be off now.
When the voice emanating from the box spoke next, it no longer sounded amused. Pard, would you care to repeat what you just said to me? It asked.
Ashok grinned in savage delight. Got you now, fool, he thought happily to himself. I said I'm going to ravish the weak to my heart's content, then devour their young afterwards. If that notion disturbs you, stop hiding like a quivering rat and come do something about it. If you dare.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said, the voice replied. Hey, don't move from that spot, okay? I'll be right out.
I look forward to it, Ashok said eagerly.
He couldn't believe what an easily manipulated fool this one was. Perhaps he was the one who ruled the humans who live within these lands. If so, he wouldn't ignore a threat to those under his protection. But even so, armed with magic or not, to willingly face the blades of 100 seasoned Keskiv raiders? He was an ignorant fool, blinded by duty and arrogance. That was all there was to it.
Prepare yourselves, lads. Looks like we're going to have some fun here after all, Ashok yelled eagerly.
Behind him his men roared with anticipation.
Such fun indeed.
Would you like me to destroy them, Sir Matthew? Pete asked me. I estimate it would take under 25 seconds of sustained fire to eliminate them entirely. No thanks, Pete, I said to him. That guy kind of pissed me off with the last thing he said. I want to get a little more hands-on with him in response. Does any particular method come to mind, sir? Well, I say it's high time we took Doughboy out for a field test. Tonight's as good a night as any for his shakedown run. What do you think, buddy? Ooh, Pete cooed approvingly. Yeah, I thought so too, I said in agreement. Doughboy it is.